Association of National Advertisers in the US. Fuck. Sorry.
Beep.
Schoolboy.
Is it me? Was it me?
No, it's mine. It's my phone.
No, because I just texted you.
It's you. You just texted
your
me.
fault.
Don't text me during
Nadia.
the show. Coming up, I give my observations of sitting on a client panel last week in New York.
We look at political spending in the US.
And we also bring news of a very interesting disruptive media agency coming to London. Hello and welcome to IDCOM's Media Snack, episode 16. So coming up today, we've just been talking actually, there's a theme across all of the segments today, and I think that is disruption.
Yeah.
So as we said, we're looking at some observations I had sat on a panel in New York last week with a lot of marketers, and a big theme of that was disruption.
We're going to look at how Donald Trump has been disrupting the spending patterns of the political scene in the US.
And also we're going to mention news of a new type of agency that's coming to London later this year, really with very disruptive business model. So that ties the theme together. All coming up on today's IDCOM's Media Snack in just the time it takes to eat a sandwich.
First up, the more observant of you will have realised that Tom wasn't around last week for our Media Snack episode.
I noticed that.
But he's back today. So Tom, where were you last week?
I was in New York all last week. I was invited actually to sit on a panel discussion with some marketers. And the theme of the event was called the Reinvention of Marketing. It's run by a fantastic organisation called the Internationalist, that you might have heard of, and partnering with the ANA in the US, the Association of National Advertisers. And it was a client-only forum, which lasted half a day on last Friday, and it had a number of different panels. As I say, the theme was reinvention of marketing, but they kicked off with a fantastic fireside chat with a guy called Brad Jakeman, who you might know is president of PepsiCo's entire beverage business. He's not short of a few words, and he's not afraid to really kind of speak out. Particularly, he got a lot of press last year from an ANA event, where he really let rip at his frustrations with the lack of evolution in the agency model. And he talks a lot about disruption and what it means for Pepsi as a business.
So what's keeping him awake at night? Is it Coca-Cola?
No, well, that was somebody asked that exact question actually. What he said about disruption was that what he's terrified of, or what keeps him awake, are not the other big players, but actually it's the real innovative new drinks brands that are actually finding that they can get shelf space across the big retailers by acting very differently.
So on merit?
Really on merit.
Right.
They're not having to pay to play. They're not necessarily having to advertise because they're using, often using social media to kind of get their message out and build up a community and a fan base for their brand. So that's where he thought that the beverage business was really potentially under threat, and that gave him cause for concern. But it was very interesting because what he shared was a lot of perspective about how within Pepsi they are trying to disrupt themselves.
Right.
You know, that was his challenge, both to his own organisation and also to the assembled delegates, which is a lot of senior marketers from across the US. And the message I thought was lovely that he left the room with was, if not marketing, then who? Yeah. And what he meant was, if marketing can't be the disruptors of the business model, then who else is going to do it?
So he's challenging them to take accountability and responsibility for disrupting their own businesses.
Exactly.
So what was our role in
what was I doing there?
Yeah, why weren't you at work?
Yeah, exactly. I was. So I was asked to sit on a panel. There were a number of panels that were exploring reinvention of marketing. And the panel that I sat on was called the Reinvention of Client Agency Relationships. So as people will know, we have a lot to say about how agencies and clients can look to work better together. And and it was facilitated by Joanne Davis, who's a kind of a good collaborator of ours in the US. And on the panel were three marketers, and fantastic representation. It was Andy Markowitz from GE. Mm-hmm. They've got a performance labs business which he runs, which is really impressive. Rob Rakowitz from Mars, who we know well, and Dan Vihn from Marriott, from the hotels business. And we were all kind of giving perspective on the experiences that we'd had from client agency perspective, and also where those challenges were happening. And so a lot of the focus, actually, a lot of the talk was about technology being a disruptor, and how the agency and client relationships are kind of being disrupted in some way by ad tech. And I think marketers, like we talk about quite a lot, marketers becoming quite empowered.
And taking control back.
Taking more control, and that's changing the relationship that they have with agencies. So it's a really worthwhile experience for me, but also I think it was a really worthwhile initiative because it sets the agenda with a little bit more kind of positivity and ambition. And there was, as I say, about 100 senior marketers in the room, which meant there was lots of good discussion about things that everybody could do better to be disruptive, think more creatively, think more innovatively in the future.
All right, so time well spent.
It was indeed. Okay, so next up, when I was in the US last week, it was impossible to escape coverage or conversation around the presidential race that everybody is well aware, I think, is going on. And obviously Donald Trump very much dominating the headlines. So we thought, it's an interesting kind of continuation of a US reference story, but it's a global thing.
That's right.
Everybody knows that in the US, candidates can spend huge amounts of media dollars in their battle to become president.
So Hillary Clinton, for example, has reportedly secured a war chest of $130 million to secure the presidency. Yeah. So far, according to the reports that we've read, Jeb Bush has spent $85 million in an unsuccessful attempt.
He won, I think, one delegate.
He did.
Yeah.
But do you know how much Donald Trump has spent so far?
No.
He spent $10 million.
$10 million.
Yet he's enjoyed 33 times more exposure than any other candidate in the presidential election.
But this is where it becomes really interesting because we're talking about disruption, and Donald Trump, like him or loathe him, has completely disrupted the model. And the traditional model has been, I think, with some few exceptions, the winner of the presidential race has tended to be the person with the largest war chest.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And I think for two reasons. One is that they can obviously spend more on advertising. But also, secondly, we've tended to find that the media outlets, so the news media, will tend to be favourable to the candidate who's got the most money to spend on their channels.
Makes sense.
Yeah, which kind of makes sense. It's not great for a democratic process, but the winner has been the person with the most money and then therefore the most influence on the media. He's disrupted this whole model.
The difference this time is earned media.
Yeah.
So they've put a calculation on the amount of earned media inventory has been dedicated to Donald Trump, and that is nearly $2 billion.
Yeah.
In February alone, he was responsible for generating $400 million worth of earned media exposure.
Yeah, which is comparable. You said Hillary's war chest currently is $130 million. I think I read that John McCain's entire campaign budget when he ran previously was $400 million, and Trump's generating that in value of exposure in 1 month.
Incredible.
And you can see it over there. I mean, as I said to you, I had kind of scrolling news on in the background, whenever I get a chance to see it, and he just has sucked the air out of the campaign. I mean, he totally dominates the headlines. You can see how he's just more interesting.
Yeah.
And perhaps, whether you agree with what he's saying or not, I guess his provocation as a strategy to be provocative and get all the cameras on him is quite clever, because he's understood and seen the power of dominating news coverage.
Absolutely.
And therefore dominating free media, which in some ways I guess has fulfilled his proposition, which is that he's at the moment not going to take campaign donations. So he's saying, I can win this without spending the money, potentially.
And that's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
I mean, he has used his experience in, I suppose, showbiz, in TV, to disrupt this entire model.
Yeah.
And it looks as though he's going to win the candidacy, and who knows where he'll go from there.
Yeah.
But Hillary's got a fight on her hands, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Well, we should expect perhaps some spending. I guess it's going to hit the TV market, particularly there, which has always counted on a presidential race as being a really good source of revenue.
That's right.
And perhaps Trump has changed that model. We'll see how that affects perhaps the TV networks in terms of income over the coming months. But it's probably quite a good thing for politics to take the advertising maybe out of the democratic process. Maybe that's a good thing.
We'll see. But we'll follow that story with great interest.
Yeah.
Continuing on our theme of disruption, coming up third topic today, the news that a new disruptive digital agency is soon to launch in London.
Yeah.
You met them in New York last week.
I did. And the company is VAYNERMEDIA.
Right.
If you haven't heard of them, they were started about 6 or 7 years ago as a social media shop.
Yeah.
In New York. They've since expanded their capabilities and their their footprint across the US, and now offering more of a full service approach, mostly in digital channels, but increasingly offline, and just general kind of paid media perspective. Founded by a kind of a legendary startup entrepreneur called Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
So they've grown phenomenally in the US. Worked with a lot of B2C brands, and have been very disruptive actually to the traditional agency model in the US, although they made a point of saying that they collaborate very, very well with agencies, as they should do. But I went in to see them whilst I was in New York, because they are planning to open an agency in London. So it'll be their first international office, launching I think in July this year. And bringing that format to London on the back of some existing client relationships, but obviously also looking to, I guess, be a good disruptive force in the UK and the European media agency scene as well.
I think that's fantastic news. I mean, we've spoken before about smart independent digital agencies being absorbed within the big networks. Yeah. The fact that there are fewer alternatives out there for clients to look and investigate. And I think with these guys coming into town, I think that's a fantastic piece of news. Something that I think the industry will embrace. And it can only be a good thing that they come and shake up the digital agency model here. Yeah. So good.
Agree. So I think next week Gary's over doing a book launch. So we may well do a media snack with Gary if we can coordinate that, which will be interesting, and we'll get him to explain why London is the next staging post for them, and also where they see the opportunity to be disruptive, because that's really the kind of heart of the business.
That'll be really interesting.
We'll look out for that. But as you say, good for the additional competition to come into a well-established marketplace
with fresh ideas, a provocative point of view, and I think it can only help clients do better work.
Yeah, watch out, London. Okay, so that's it for disruption for this week. Please subscribe to the channel and give us a thumbs up, and thank you for watching. Bye for now.
Have a good weekend.